Today I'm feeling nostalgic. I want to know down in the comments, what are your favorite horror movies from the Blockbuster era? Now, I don't mean your favorite videos that you used to rent at Mr. Video, your favorite mom and pop shop down in Beaufunk, nowhere. I mean chain store. It's the early 2000s, late 90s. Blockbuster has exclusive tapes and DVDs. What are your favorite movies from that era? Movies that either went straight to video or had a small theatrical run. What were your favorite movies to rent from around that time? And when you got that 2-for-1 candy and popcorn deal, which I know I miss, and I know that I'm a little bit ashamed to admit that I'm missing Blockbuster, but I am. Hey everyone, I'm Adam Cesare. This is Project Black T-Shirt. It's the channel where we talk about a new release movie or a reissue movie and pair it with a piece of horror fiction that you're going to enjoy if you like that movie. Today we're talking about two new Blu-ray releases of older films. They are both from the MVD Rewind Collection. This is BRAM STOKER'S Shadowbuilder, and this is Abominable. I talked about an entry in the MVD Rewind Collection in my Swamp Thing movie recap. I talked about Return of Swamp Thing and how much I love it, and not too many people piped in and were like, you're right, Return of Swamp Thing is great. But I wanted to check out some of their other genre offerings because they do these kind of faux, weathered, faux VHS cover releases of older films or films that were popular during the video and early DVD era. They do a lot of kind of action films and other genre films, but I'm just checking out their horror releases. So we're going to talk about these two, and we're going to talk, are they worth it? Are they worth your time? They do really nice releases. They put a poster in there. They both got slip cases. They got a ton of extras and nice new transfers. But we're going to say, are these two movies that came out kind of at the tail end of the great video store experiment, are they worth your time? Do they hold up? And spoiler alert, I think one of them does and one of them doesn't. So I'm an active social media user. I posted that I got Abominable on Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that, and every single person came out of the woodwork and been like, oh my god, you're gonna love Abominable, you're gonna love this, it's great. I remember watching that on Sci-Fi. I guess it was a kind of either an acquisition or a part co-financed thing with the Sci-Fi channel back when they spelled it with I's. This is a movie that is very simply boiled down to Rear Window with a Bigfoot, which sounds to me like my absolute catnip, especially when you consider the cast of this film, especially when you consider that it's a practical creature effect film. I really was expecting to love Abominable, but I was a little bit underwhelmed. And out of the two movies we're going to talk about, it's not the one that tickled my fancy, but we'll talk about it real quick, and we'll talk about what a great job MVD did in releasing this movie, and why I think this release is actually really worthy of note. But the movie itself, didn't love. First of all, it stars Matt McCoy of Seinfeld fame. He's been in a bunch of other things, but you're gonna watch the movie and remember him from Seinfeld. He is playing the Jimmy Stewart part in the recently injured in the wheelchair in an accident in which he lost his wife. But there's also kind of a who's who of horror cinema. Jeffrey Combs shows up. He kind of steals the show for a hot minute. Lance Hendrickson, D. Wallace Stone is in a little kind of pre-credit sequence, but it's got a lot of Tiffany Shepis. It's got a lot of people that if you're a horror person, you like to see, and that is one of the saving graces of this film, is just the pure nostalgia of being like, oh look, one of the girls at the rental cabin across the way is Tiffany Shepis. So that part of the movie I liked. One of the interesting things about this film is because to do a Blu-ray, and the Blu-ray does look good, the transfer looks great, to do a Blu-ray release of the film, the director, Ryan Schifrin, had to go back in and redo all the effects shots. So the monster itself, the Bigfoot, the Abominable Snowman, had CGI eyes, so they had to redo the CGI and kind of make it a little better on his eyes. I don't think I know they had to do it because of the way that things were mastered. It was mastered in standard definition. They're now mastering in high def. I know why they had to do it. I don't have anything to compare to it. I think there is another version of it. There's the original version of it on the disc in standard definition. If you wanted to kind of compare, it doesn't look blow away great. It does look cool, but it does take away from some of that. I know it's only 2005, 2006. It does take away from some of that kind of period patina that the film has in abundance. You don't think of like, oh, 2005 as being that far away, but it kind of is. It's like, you know, it's getting to be almost 15 years ago. It's a while. But it is a movie that has heart, that has production value, that has enjoyable moments, especially some of the kind of gore shots, especially if you were reading Fangoria around the time this film came out, you had a lot of the big gore money shots kind of ruined for you, especially when the Bigfoot kind of extends his jaw and just starts chomping on faces. Like, those parts are great. Something about the film didn't 100% add up for me, but I completely applaud MVD and the Rewind Collection for putting this movie out and for lavishing the attention they did. The special features are in this case, I think, more interesting than the film itself. I thought talking to Schifrin, who is clearly, this was a labor of love and something he had to get back into in order to re-release this film, kind of put himself back in that mindset. It's really fantastic, and the making of and the EPKs from around the time that the film was made and then comparing them to now, it's a real kind of walk down memory lane, and that's why I opened this video with talking about Blockbuster and that kind of era of the last gasp of kind of original content being released in physical media, not straight to VOD. So this is a little bit of a time capsule film, and I think, you know, in 5 or 6 years from now especially, this is going to be a movie we look back on. Like, maybe the nostalgia is not quite there yet, time-wise, and for, like I said, for like people on Instagram, people on Facebook, everyone chimed in and being like, oh, I love that movie. I remember watching that movie on Sci-Fi. I don't have that kind of payload of nostalgia for this movie, and the movie itself doesn't deliver it to me while I'm watching it, but very, very interesting release, very lavish, very exhaustive release for this movie. If you are at all a fan of this film, like many of you I know kind of piped up and said you are, yeah, don't think twice, pick this up. If you're not a fan of this film and it doesn't sound like the kind of thing that you want to check out, maybe give it a pass, maybe check out the other film we're going to talk about. But if you like Abominable, or if you hold any nostalgia for Abominable in your heart, this is a disc that you should buy. Moving the clock back a couple more years, we have Bram Stoker's Shadowbuilder. Now, this is not a film that I saw when it came out. This is not a movie that I rented. It's a cover, a VHS cover that I remember vividly around the time it came out. I kind of remember it along the same lines as like Breeders and some of the Full Moon releases at Blockbuster and Hollywood Video, at those chain video stores. I remember seeing this, or an approximation of this cover, and being like, man, I wonder what that movie's like. I bet it's super messed up. It's not super messed up as an adult watching this film, but it is super interesting, and it is my favorite of the two films we're going to talk about today. Bram Stoker's Shadowbuilder has very, very little in common with the short story that it's based on, almost to the extent of like the way that Castle Freak is based on a H.P. Lovecraft story, but not really. Shadowbuilder is based on a Bram Stoker story, but not really. It stars, let's read them through, Michael Rooker, Leslie Hope, Sean Thompson, Andrew Jackson, Kevin Zegers, and Tony Todd. So the two names that are going to jump out at you are Michael Rooker and Tony Todd, and with a film like this, especially, it's 1998, you're kind of thinking, like, are they in it enough, or are they just cameos? It was a few years later, kind of the Abominable era, when stars like this would become cameos, but they're not cameos. Michael Rooker is the lead of this film. He's kind of, I guess he kind of technically is second lead next to the kid he's trying to save, but Rooker is the lead of this film. Tony Todd gets a ton of weirdo grace moments. If you like these two performers, and you haven't seen Shadow Builder, you're gonna really enjoy it. Michael Rooker, I guess, is like this feels like a film from 1998. It feels like a Blade-esque, just super hardcore new metal movie, even though there's no new metal in it. Michael Rooker plays a priest, but he is like he's a martial priest. He has 2 9mm hand cannons that they call them in the film. With a laser scope on them. There's always plenty of fog so you can see the laser scope, and he's just like dispatching cultists and demons with his guns. Tony Todd plays he has Rasta music playing. He has long dreads. He plays the town eccentric in this small town that has gone around stealing everyone's Christmas lights and is lighting up his kind of base of operations with their Christmas lights. It is a movie about a demon that has come to Earth. This cult has summoned this demon. He is a shadow builder, so he can manipulate shadows, and he's trying to bring kind of permanent darkness to this small town. The movie has a cool kind of Stephen King-y kind of feel where you meet everyone in the small town and they start getting picked off, and then you have this bigger scene where everything starts going crazy in the small town. There's a ton of production value in Shadow Builder. It's a movie that I'm actually quite surprised that I haven't heard of, that I haven't heard good things about, especially given the kind of circles I run in. But I actually know exactly the reason why Shadow Builder doesn't have a kind of a cult following. And the reason is the abundant use of CGI. It's CGI that I actually think has aged quite well. From the late 1990s, from the Stephen Sommer mummy movies and stuff like that, especially if you consider the budget, comparatively the budget that Shadow Builder was made on, I think the CGI looks perfectly fine. There's some shots that are better than others. There's some of these, like the demon manipulating shadows, like turning them into flies, turning them into dogs. Some of it works a lot better than others, but I think the filmmaking is just basically pretty good and above competent. So I think the filmmakers know how to use this limited CGI to their advantage. You have this awesome looking demon on the cover. It's nowhere in the movie, I'm sorry. It is just kind of a dude with a mask that's been kind of CGI augmented. It doesn't look great, but as I said with Abominable, I actually think we are far enough from 1998. It's 20 years later. We're far enough from this movie coming out that you could have a certain amount of nostalgia for this rudimentary CGI accompaniment. But the movie itself, it feels long, it feels longer, but it feels full. There's a ton of stuff going on in it. It's this small town led by Michael Rooker and the local sheriff fighting this demon. It feels like, at times it feels like a kid's movie because the demon is searching out this one kind of almost like Second Coming type kid, this kid that's like good enough that he could become a saint, and he's trying to like kill him and possess him. So it does feel like a Kids on Bikes movie. It does feel like a kind of a kid's movie in a way, but the way I described it to my friend, I was like, this is a hard R Ernest Scared Stupid, without the effects. But if that at all sounds interesting to you, and this was a movie that really did charm me, that really did get under my skin, and after Abominable, where I wasn't 100% on board with like, why does this movie need like a really nice deluxe release, Shadow Builder was like, oh, this movie deserves a really nice deluxe release. Super fun. MVD Rewind Collection, I think they're doing a great job, and these are really neat releases. And they do the thing where they put the spine numbers on it, and they have a nice uniform look to them. So they line up nice on a shelf. I'm not gonna be getting every single one because I just want the horror stuff, but really, really cool, and they should be applauded and supported for what they're doing. To continue the absolute nostalgic mood I'm in, this week's book recommendation is, it's a book that I've talked about before, or it's a release that I've talked about, a release of 3 different books that I've talked about before. Aliens Omnibus, Titan Books put this out. This is the first 3 kind of Dark Horse tie-in comic book adaptation novels, Earth Hive, Nightmare Asylum, and The Female War. They are the altered versions that that kind of don't invalidate canon after Alien 3 came out, but they're very, very fun. They're they feel very 90s to me, or maybe that's the time that I originally read them. I talked about these when I talked about Alien Covenant, but not a whole lot of people have seen that video, or so I can be forgiven for repeating myself. But I think this is a great release. They did 2 or 3 more volumes of these, and then they also did a Predator volume, and then they did an Alien versus Predator volume. But these are the ones I had real nostalgia for, and it was a lot of fun reading back through them, even though they are the kind of newer versions. And I'll put the links down in the description to this and everything else we talked about, as I always do. I'm Adam Cesare. This has been Project Black T-Shirt. If you like this video, please hit like. If you really like this video, please subscribe and check out my other videos. I write books, I write novels, novellas, short stories, sometimes comic books when they let me, horror, all the time. If you want to check those out, you can join my mailing list and I'll send you a free sample. Yeah, go to my website. Please buy a book. Please review it. It helps me keep the channel going. Thanks so much. Have a great day, and I'll see you later.